Hello, everyone, and welcome to the finale episode of Network Roundtable Softer Side of Business. We're really excited to be here today. I am just so pleased that we're going to be ending it with a bang. Talking about variety, we've got Leigh Britton as our +1 superhero, and Scott Scowcroft, or our +1 sidekick, and Elaine Nieberding is our #1 host today. And what? Why are you laughing?
Get this, folks. It's like the Mickey Mouse Club song, Nieberding, Nieberding.
Oh, I said it wrong. That's why you're laughing. Nieberding.
Yeah. Y'all can get it right.
Okay. Nieberding. I think I can get that.
Thank you very much.
And you pronounced my name wrong, too, because my name's Terry with a Y, not Terry with an I.
You know what? I can't do everything perfect. And the show is a really great representative of me not doing things perfectly. But at any rate, this is the show where we bring core values into our lives through our business, and let's just get this show on the road. Let's get going and get into some good talk about variety. Go ahead, Elaine.
Well, hi everybody out in Hangout Land, in internet space. We're so glad that you are watching us today, either on Google Plus or on YouTube or wherever you happen to land and have this playing. So, because once again, this show is about engagement, and we do anticipate that some of our conversation is going to spur you to gain new insights or develop questions. We would love it if you would share them with us. We're going to have this conversation, but we might just weave you in a little bit. We hope so. Anyway, it was somebody Cowpers who said, variety is the spice of life. And indeed, the essence of an interesting life is by making things new. In fact, somewhere in the Bible, in Revelations, God said, behold, I make all things new. So, every day we have the opportunity to look at things in new ways, to review ourselves, our own life, make different changes and different decisions, and have a new spice. And as I have been getting to know wonderful folks on Google+, I chose this value of variety to talk about because I like versatile and variety and stuff. And as I came to get to know Leigh Britton, I said, he must be the perfect guy to bring in to talk about or help us explore this subject of variety. When I was just getting to know him a few months ago, he told me, even before I knew he was launching this new show, that he was getting ready to launch, ding, 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 a variety show. How cool is that? So I'd like to just say hello, Terry. Where are you hanging out from? That's kind of a usual place to start.
Well, I am on this planet, and the actual whereabouts is Elizabeth City, North Carolina, the far east of the United States, all jutting way out into the Atlantic Ocean.
And, you know, we're calling you the superhero and the sidekick, but the truth is, we're all just pals here, you know, and we are together to just stimulate new awarenesses and bring forth and revel in our own experiences and the perceptions of others on our life and experiences. And with that, I'm going to bring in Scott Scowcroft. Hi, Scott.
Hi,
Where are you hanging out from?
Oh, I'm hanging out on almost the shores of Puget Sound in the beautiful Northwest, where it's cloudy and overcast for the first time in a long, long time after having a hot spell.
So there's a little bit more variety going on in the weather out there. I guess that's what we're saying today. But with you two together, I thought it would be a most interesting mix of conversation, because I understand you have come to know each other pretty well, since both of you had a pretty early onset experience in as Google Plus was emerging as a social platform. And so, Terry, let me just invite you to let bubble up some of your reminiscences of getting to know Scott. And as you do that, just share some of the things that you appreciate about him.
Oh, yes, those were the days. I remember it well. Why, back in the day when Scott and I were mere lads in the Google Plus world, knee-high to grasshoppers, we encountered each other via some help with some sound issues. Wasn't that what it was, Scott? Yeah. And so somehow word had gotten around that Terry might be able to help, or maybe I just jumped in. I don't even remember how it happened, whether you solicited me or you posted something and I offered to help. But anyway, so we first met because I was helping him out with some sound issues, and then we hit it off. We have a lot in common, tons in common, and a lot of similar interests. And over time, we both got more and more into the Hangout thing. We were knowing Ronnie Binzer and the group of people that were hanging around that whole community that Ronnie has built up, and it became both of us kind of gestating this thing of all this potential that existed with these Hangouts existing in the Google sphere, all surrounding it as a support network, and it was very exciting for both of us, and so we both started like dreaming up where we're going to go with it and what we're going to do with it, and so he actually got way ahead of me in terms of doing regular programming and with Jessica, but I tried a bunch of stuff during the winter while my internet was still good, but then we had a bunch of storms in April, and it knocked out my internet for like 3 months, where it was pathetic, and it took me off the airwaves. But I did a challenge to myself where I would do a different subject every single night, 5 times a week. I would do a different topic. So I had a music show, I had a Terry's Tech show, I had a Terry's Rant. So I had a variety of different shows, but each topic was going on a different night.
And so, Terry, I'm going to get back to the whole thing about variety and shows in a minute, but during this first part of the show, I'm kind of aiming a little bit at gleaning, of the variety of folks that you have relationships with on Google+.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a reason, beside just having the experience of sound issues in common, why you kind of click with Scott. I mean, what's the essence of Scott that you really feel is, it touches your heart, or you really say, he really nails it there, or he's really spot on there. What is that?
Well, we match up in a lot of philosophical areas, and there's no doubt about that. And it's really easy to talk about deep subjects with each other and to share deep ideas. And there's no kind of having that kind of talk to help bring somebody up to speed with what the heck we're talking about. We kind of meet on even ground a lot. And so our conversations are always easy and relaxed and comfortable. And
I dare to say that there's actually this other thing too. It's like your hairstyles are remarkably similar.
Well, he got that from me.
So I'm going to ask Scott to unmute. Scott, this wild man, this showman, this variety guy over here, tell me something about what you appreciate about him as you've come to know him in this unique social space. Because I dare to say you've probably never met in person, right?
Well, we've to the best of our knowledge, we've never met in person unless there's reincarnation in a previous life or something. But I'm not sure if we have enough time in the show for me to be as expansive as I'd like to. But Terry's right. We do seem to have a lot in common, and I think we grew up in the same era, and we had many of the same experiences through life, so that when we finally crossed paths below these many years ago, 2 or 3, internet time, which is a long, long time, I saw in Terry someone who is a very kind person, someone who is a natural helper, what I think to be a Renaissance or approaching a Renaissance person, which is exactly falling into your theme today, because if there's not variety, and I mean, what that means is that there are a number of wells, and they are all very deep, and they're all very varied, and that is Terry to a T. So one of the things that he excels in is technology. So if any of us have any need to go over a hump or to learn something new, we know that we can call upon Terry, and because he's that helpful kind of guy, he's front and center to do that. So I really appreciate Terry a ton. He and I were in on Michael Daniels' game shows before they went live to everyone. We were all just kind of doing it kind of on our own for a while, and so that was a lot of fun. And of course, Ronnie Bincer's Hangout Mastery Group and so forth. So this has just been a very dense time, I think, for all of us who have been on the Plus, because we've created a new culture and a new society that is this online one, and for some reason we've all seemed to come together pretty closely. And I'm sure that the people in the audience know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So I'm now going to segue into this exploration of the value relating to past and present and future. And there's a couple ways we can do that. If we're interweaving the value and talking about it in our business, the truth is our own life experience, as varied as it is, then takes expression in our work and in our business, and that changes throughout our life. I was reflecting on this and thinking about my own father, who worked for one company his whole life. His whole life, he worked for Western Electric as an electrical engineer. He did have different roles and jobs, but he basically was within one culture and company for a long time. And how different it is now, where folks likely are to change jobs and fields of service and work many times in their life. But let me start out with you, Terry. If you kind of look at the flow of your life, the different kind of jobs and arenas of service, just help us spotlight some of those. And, you know, not thinking about it too much, because I mean, a whole life is a long time with a lot of stuff, but I bet there are different little gems that came forth from your different type of work experiences that have really brought you forth to this, you know, you could say the entrepreneur, the business person, the service person and showman that you are today. Just give us a couple gems.
Well, let's see. Well, I started out out of high school. I got into an art school as a sneak-in student, learning electronic music composition and multimedia performance art. So I was an artist and composer up in Boston, and exposed to all these people in the academia world. But I was kind of in an ivory tower, so all I did was go to into the school when it opened at 8. I left when it closed at 11 o'clock at night, 7 days a week, and pretty much, well, except Sunday, where they kicked you out at 6. But I didn't realize, I was just out of high school. I was a greenhorn. I didn't know anything much about life. So when I turned 21, I got a Hackney license and started driving a cab. And boy, did I learn how little I knew about life from driving a cab, because you meet every single person from every walk of life driving a cab. It was a really wonderful 5 years out of the 8 years I lived in Cambridge. I did that for 5 years, and it really expanded my horizons and my interests and started me off on that path towards really being a Renaissance person. Now, I already was somewhat Renaissance-ish, that I had interests in multiple things. I was very interested in sciences and very interested in the arts and music. However, that experience is what really broadened my horizons to look, to have the gumption to look and expand and stretch, and the realization of how I could have limited myself if I had gone and specialized. And so I became kind of a generalist by decree. And that lasted the rest of my life, where I did many different types of works, but many different types of jobs. I became really, really good at anything I was doing, but I would change. And back then when I was doing it, I was, people were like your father. Everybody stayed in one job, and so people were looking at me askance, like, how come you only like 2 years, 3 years in a job and you change it? Well, I get bored. I can learn something new, and I want to. And so, I mean, God, I became a college professor at the age of 54 or something, I mean, it's like complete switch around from anything I'd ever done before. And but the whole thing is that my bent in life became focused on not stagnating and being a generalist and allowing myself to expand. Like now, I'm a programmer, computer programmer too, as well as doing shows, and a media technologist and all this kind of stuff.
So a quick question. So when did you really start getting into what I'll call entrepreneurial stuff? How long ago was that?
Well, it depends on what you define. It would have to be pretty long ago. Back in the early 80s, I joined. Well, actually, in the 70s, I was an entrepreneur on the nonprofit front with nonprofit organizations in the arts, and I helped found 3 of them in Boston and Cambridge. Then moved to New York, was co-president of Art for the People. These were really successful groups that I was in. We were able to do miraculous things. Art for the People did these huge street shows in New York City, at Port Authority, and the World Trade Center was the first, but I wasn't involved in that one. We did the Central Park shows. We were the first to ever do anything on the Staten Island Ferry, on the boat. In fact, the guy not only gave us the director of ferries and airports, not only gave us a boat, he gave us the whole terminal too.
Wow.
So I mean, that was entrepreneurial, because I had to go out and I could get insurance for $3 million for this boat, and find someone to put a rider on their insurance. It makes you adventurous. So I already had that in the arts, and then later shifted that over to other types of businesses as I grew old and became interested in different types of things.
And so, if I were to ask you, Terry, like, what is your verb? If there's a verb that's Terry, what one, springs to mind?
I have a couple of...
Okay, go ahead.
A couple of wannabe verbs, like ebullient, it would be one, expansive, but in reality, I am something of... Actually, I'm a kind of a quiet person, almost an introvert, but I overcame that introverted stuff years and years ago in high school, because nobody else would talk to the audience in my band, and no one else would announce the songs. And so I wound up announcing the songs, and that got me out of stage fright, and I've been able to overcome any introversion ever since. So most people think I'm this extreme extrovert.
That's so funny. Like, that's kind of like what happened with me with this show. Like, I wasn't gonna be the host. I was the right hand or whatever. Like, I would be inviting stuff like that. But then, like, situations happen, and you just like step up. Like, talents just, or I don't know if it's talent, but abilities no matter
Yeah.
how good you are at something or not. But they just kind of emerge as you need them, right?
And expose themselves, yes, because you have to dive in. It's the
Yeah.
old throw you into water to learn to swim thing, but it works. It's
And
funny.
so I want to kind of get Scott to unmute his mic, please, because, again, inviting you to reflect on the very different things that you have done in your lifetime, you know, those interests that have drawn your attention, you know, to give service and your arenas of play. Can you just reflect on what that was in the past and kind of how that's moved you into where you are today? How those
Well,
experiences, those varied experiences, built to kind of make you the gem you are today.
well, thanks. Well, everyone's path is different, and mine is certainly different from Terry's. I never really quite knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. And for the longest time, I was wondering when that would actually occur. It would be, am I grown up yet? Am I an adult yet? You just don't feel that way. You always feel like yourself your whole life, and so eventually you look at yourself and you say, okay, I must be an adult by now. But it's only through, connecting the dots and saying, well, it must be so. So I graduated from high school. Actually, while I was in high school, I got my when I was in junior high, I got my third-class radio telephone operator's license, and when I was high school, I started working at a TV station part-time and then full-time in my senior year at a radio station. And I spent a couple of years after that going to college and working my way through college at the radio station, and didn't really wasn't clicking, so I took a few years off and became an educational television director for the Carson City School District, which meant that I pirated television shows off of networks and then played it back for teachers in elementary and middle and high schools. So that's what I did for a few years. Decided, man, I'm not going anywhere in my life, so just on a whim, not on a whim, but I came to Washington State. I thought that had a nice culture here, and that's where my family heritage was from, even though I grew up in Montana, and spent a few years trying to figure out what to do, and said, I'm going back to college, which I did, and graduated from maybe arguably the most liberal of the liberal arts colleges in the United States, the Evergreen State College, and immediately got a job after that working at a community access television station where I stayed for 20 years. And it wasn't long before I was managing the facility. Following that, I had to recover. As a recovering director of a TV studio, and did a few other things in marketing and so forth, and was laid off several years ago, and decided at that time, and it was at the height of the Great Recession, and I thought, well, nobody's going to hire me anyway because nobody's being hired, and even if they did, they wouldn't hire me back at the same level I was before. So I became the reluctant entrepreneur. And the more I found out about it, the more I liked it. Now I say I have the tagline, the reluctant entrepreneur who never looked back. So that's how we got to be where I am right now.
So I like that. I like that a lot. Kristin, I'm really curious. Do we have a couple people showing up, making comments, or at least saying, hi, I'm here?
I'm actually in the process of getting the comment tracker,
Okay.
or trying to get it to work.
All right. So just
yeah.
pipe back in. If you see something showing up that we can weave into the show, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. You know what? I actually did. So I'm not gonna pull it up on screen, but Melanie Hall said that her verb for Terry is do, and I said mine is meld. Because I'll never forget the Terry mind meld.
There you go. And I would have to say, Terry just wants to be the greater third.
That's right. Greater third.
That's a private joke. Well, kind of a private joke. Anyway, because we're talking about variety, and I do want to get to talking about what it's like to put together a variety show or to evolve a variety show. And of course, hold up your blue juice, Terry. You made one little debut earlier in the show. His show, this is actually a variety show on Google Plus called The Blue Juice Variety Show. I think I got it right. But as I was thinking about this, Terry, I started thinking about the decades when Scott and you and I were growing up, because I think we're kind of close in age. When we were growing up watching TV, there were great variety shows on television. There was Ed Sullivan. I mean, that's where the world saw the Beatles. There was Dean Martin. He had a variety show. Carol Burnett had variety shows. Then there was like Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. That was kind of an evolution. And I'm sure there are some others. So, Terry, let me pick your brain. Do you remember some of those things about watching those shows and the enjoyment that you got out of them early on when, you know, that was social media then. That was television. Mm-hmm. What ones of those may have spurred you to want to actually have your own variety show? I would love to hear about that.
Well, it was mostly the fact that those old shows always had dog acts and jugglers and acrobats. And I'm working up a bit of an act where I take these bottles and spin them around during my show, but it's hardly going to look much like juggling. It's mostly special effects. But okay, the thing that got me about the variety shows of old, and yes, I definitely reminded. In fact, I've been watching some old variety shows that are even older than my day, like the Jimmy Durante show, sponsored by Old Gold, old things. I've been watching those on YouTube, and those went from the year I'm born, for goodness sake, you know. But variety shows have been around a long, long time, and you mentioned other great shows, the Dean Martin show, of course, Jackie Gleason's show, Carol Burnett had hers, Cher had her great show. Man, I mean, there were so many good variety shows back in those days, and they did have really interesting varieties of things going on. Yeah, Ed Sullivan kept that staple of the jugglers and the dog acts for years and years and years. And it was so funny that, you know, of course, on the same show, the Beatles showed up. There was also a dog act and a juggler. There were such staples of variety shows back then. But now it's like many, many years later, and I have a variety of interests. And I said, you know, rather than doing one show a week like I did in the beginning, one on each interest, why not just clump them all together into one long show and have a variety show? And it was inspired by the old variety shows, but kind of you know, as an exploration of where I could go with it. So this is a big experiment.
And so you're executive producer, director, producer, performer,
right. And
announcer,
juggler and dog act.
Juggler, handler of dog acts, and even engaging with the audience in your own way. Mm-hmm. So I love it that you give yourself permission, as we do on Google+. It's like you put yourself out there transparently. Some of the stuff works. Some of it fails.
And that was the other thing.
Forward, you know?
That was the other thing I loved, because that actually was in variety shows of before my day. Were the live shows. Who was that famous comedian who had that show with Coca was her name, Imogene Coca, and it was a comedian who was like, no, it was before, well, no, not before Dean Martin, because Dean Martin was contemporary Frank Sinatra, but there was a great comedian with Imogene Coca as a staple on his show and several others. But those shows were all live, and they don't even exist because they didn't even record them back then. There's so many of those live shows were not recorded. And the Milton Berle shows were all live. And so this whole idea of live TV coming back, and radio used to always be live. I mean, you heard Jack Benny's show. That was a live show every single time, you know. And he did help get involved in recording, influenced by Bing Crosby's, you know, development with Ampex and recording, starting to record shows. But boy, before that, all shows were recorded. And so, I mean, we're live. And so I like the live energy and the fact that you could have mistakes and you just had to eat it and keep on, show must go on kind of thing.
So I want to jump on over here to Scott. Scott, you know, again, we're kind of from the same generation here. So when you think about some of these variety shows, what are some of the things that pop back into your mind? And was there any of that exposure to TV that then, you know, obviously influenced you to want to do something with television and with media and with video?
Well, sure, and this was really a trip down memory lane. There's also Milton Berle and Groucho Marx and the Henry Morgan Show and so forth. I can remember when the nightly news was with Chet Huntley, David Brinkley, and of course Walter Cronkite and whoever that third network was. All of those, and I grew up with TV. My family also worked in TV, so we had the first color television. I worked in a TV station where we had the first color TV camera in the state. It had 4 tubes, red, green, and blue, and contrast. It was a Marconi, and it was imported from England. So I can remember we videotaped a political something or other one day, and it was videotaped in high band, and we had the only high band VCR in the state. So poor Dwayne, who was the director, had to drive from Billings to, I think it was Missoula, because actually they had a high band up there, and they were able to transmit it down to microwave to our another TV station so that they could record it on low band so that they could air that political. So that's how we did things back then.
And it's so interesting. It's so interesting, Scott. Think about it. Black and white, you know, like polar opposites. And then the next evolution was the whole spectrum of color. And think of, if we kind of use that as a simile or a metaphor, kind of a metaphor, and we're now thinking about what we can do online and video now. It's like we've taken the color spectrum, and with what we are able to research, connect with online all over the planet, you know, it's our experience of variety has just taken a quantum leap in the subjects that we can talk about and the variety of experiences that we can have connecting our cultures. And, you know, kind of like in the e pluribus unum, like one out of many, or out of many one. What an amazing thing. But yet you got to experience that first shift with just the black and white production to color. That's amazing.
And one of the things I love about the internet and all, you know, everything that goes along with it is that I believe it's the democratization of mass media. So no longer do you have just the few FCC broadcast licenses, which were licensed to print money, incidentally. But now we all can have a way of expressing ourselves and to an audience, and we have valuable tools that actually up the game so that we can actually have a little bit of legitimacy. So Terry's program is a perfect example of being able to go out there and put together some great stuff and develop your own audience and go forth and, you know, live long and prosper. So we are I believe living through entirely revolutionary times, and there will be historians looking back on this time saying, man, they really went through a lot of changes back then.
Yeah. So I have a question now, first for Terry, and then for some of the people who might be watching either live or in replay. And Terry, if you could just kind of name the different current segments of your show, because you have a whole bunch of segments, you know, those are the variety portions. Can you name what those are? And then I would love for the audience who has seen your show, and there have to be a good few who are watching this live or replay, I would love for them to be able to share with us, you know, if there's a particular part of your show that just rings their chimes. Like for me, oh my God, when you play the flute, like my jaw drops open, like every time. But name the different segments for us to refresh our memories.
Okay, and by the way, that was Sid Caesar and Imogene Coca that I was trying to think of before.
Ah.
And who, even though I never saw hardly any of their footage because it doesn't exist, they really have been major inspiration for my show because their flubs during live TV are famous. So.
Okay, so the sections of your show.
My sections, I have, yes, the music sections where I do play a flute interlude. I call them musical interludes. Well, the whole show starts off with a really long, an hour-long musical intro. That's a playback, usually of some recorded music. But the thing is that it follows this live performance thing because it's all this conceptual live performance art type of thing that I've been doing for years.
And it's got, don't you have like these wavy videos that are dancing to the music that you have on?
Amazing
so
computer generated.
And like meditate for an hour. Like,
yes.
What kind of psychedelic experience am I going to have?
Well, they can space out for an hour, that's for sure.
Right.
Those are backgrounds generated by thousands of computers working together, similar to how the SETI project works, to generate these. They're called Electric Sheep, electricsheep.org, and anybody can have this generator on their computer as a screensaver. It's cool as all get out. But the idea of those musical things and all the musical stuff is that it's always performed live. It's composed live. So it's a live composition exercise. And so it can mess up. It's live recording, and so it can mess up. And if it does, I usually do what Thelonious Monk said when they asked him what does he do if he makes a mistake on stage in front of like all of these people watching him at these gigantic amphitheaters and things like that. And he says, so what do you do if you make a mistake? He says, well, usually I repeat it with emphasis.
Okay, so you start out with this meditative music, and then in the current evolution of the show, what do you typically segue into?
Usually, well, I go over what's going to come up in the show, of course. And tonight's show will have blah, 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 blah. And then we have various segments that have become regulars. We have always a poetry reading. I read a item of poetry aloud, okay? And I also display it on the screen as I'm reading it. Some people like to read along. I also read a story. I've been reading segments from Alice in Wonderland and Alice in the Looking Glass, and I've read other segments as well from other stories, and read a whole bunch of old stories of my own in the first shows, and they were kind of fantasy fun stories. And so I always have those two segments. I have the flute interlude, or a keyboard music interlude, or a flute and keyboard interlude. In between different segments, I have Pixlr editor tutorials where I show how to do some image manipulation.
The educational component.
The educational component.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So I do some kind of a tech thing. I do a sciencey item of the week when I can find a really cool sciencey item of the week to talk about that just kind of expands our minds. I do a superabundance item of the week that brings about just how much abundance we have on the planet right now, like this affordability to broadcast to the whole planet for free. And so so lately, in fact, the last 4 or 5 weeks, I've just been focusing on the stuff Google gives us for free, as abundance items. And so I do something on that. I do other tech types of things on video, on making video, on producing. I've been doing some tutorials on using Audacity as a sound editor, both simple editing for podcast level editing, as well as doing some multi-track music production. So I've shown people how to do easy multi-track, singing along with yourself type of music production using a free tool. So it's things like that. Then I go into the mind map of the week where when I had a bunch of mind maps to show off. I'm running out of mind maps to share that I've made, but I feature a mind map that I've made of the week and make that public. And let's see.
I want to touch on something real quick.
Yeah,
go ahead.
With anything that we gain, there's going to be a price, right? And you're talking about the abundance of the free products that Google puts out. Mm-hmm. And some people have a real problem with that we give them our information. As one who appreciates statistics, I find nothing wrong with it, and I think, yeah, give them information because that's how we're going to learn about our planet and like the people that inhabit it. So to me, it doesn't seem like it's a heavy price, but there is that component. I just wanted to know if like any of you have a problem with that.
Well, I in order to be involved in the stuff I do on my show, I actually make people have to watch it. So I mean, that's quite a thing to have to do. No, I mean, I can't see anything that you get in abundance being an entirely free ticket. There's no such thing as free. There's always some kind of somebody's doing some work to make something happen, always. So even if you're getting it totally free, somebody had to do some work to make it possible. Nothing would happen without some leadership components going on, where somebody said, rally around, let's get this done, let's do this thing. If nobody did that, there wouldn't be anything anybody was doing. So there's always energy being expended, and sometimes that has to figure out a way to support itself, to pay for the bills, especially if it's involving a lot of somebody's time. The early days of the TV, like what Scott was doing in the early days, because it was a law that all cable stations had to have public access involved. At first, it was all volunteer, but that was such a nightmare fiasco, and eventually paid managers came into being to make this free service be able to take place. And so just can't use up on everybody's time 100%. Plus, like what you're saying, Kristin, that's a great insight, that the information the way they're using the information is very beneficial, I think, down the road to many, many aspects of people's lives. And when I talk about abundance things, I bring it like Peter Diamandis and his ideas on abundance and the futurism, bringing in what the futurists are talking about, what's going to be happening in 50 years from now. And that 50 years is going to get here, whether we're in a rush for it or not, it's still going to get here. Whether we want it or not, it's going to get here. So we may as well take the time to get ready for that and be interested enough to be watching for. Hey,
so Kristin, can you read some of those comments, or do you want me to bring some of? I don't have Comment Tracker up, but I do have the other link. So
that link that I gave you, was that?
No, it didn't work. But I can just read some of them right from the comment stream.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've got it up too. So let me see, where did I wanted to read something here.
Well, we have a nice group of people there. Yeah, go ahead.
He was saying, let me see, where can I find it? Oh, first of all, Melanie Hall wanted to know, okay, here we go. I've got hers. Vaudeville was the earliest official form of variety show. Would you agree?
Vaudeville, yep.
That's what I was thinking, okay. And another thing that Michael said that I thought was really cool, I think most importantly, Terry Leigh Britton brings an honest quality to the platforms he's involved with, and I would have to agree with that. I definitely agree. That's really good insight there, Michael.
And so some of the other people that are hanging out here are Elena Bellametti, Ron Snaberger, Nina Trankova, Christine L. Bowen, Molly Youngblood Geiger, and again, Melanie Hall said hello. And let's see, did you already say, Kristin, Melanie Hall said her verb for Terry Leigh Britton is do. Okay.
And mine was meld.
Right. And then Melanie Hall's favorite variety show was Carol Burnett. And she also likes Sonny and Cher and Laugh-In too. And
Michael Thomas says, very cool and relaxing musical first hour intro prelude for Terry Leigh Britton's Blue Juice Jubilee variety show. Good job.
And Melanie, like me, loves the flute. So I'm curious, you know, think about it. When television evolved, the Nielsen rating system emerged, and somehow was a way of seeing kind of what popular interest was, where, you know, who was tuning into what. And so we as Hangout hosts, you as a creator of a variety show, you know, have you developed, or are you thinking of developing a way of getting feedback so that, you know, is the show just emerging from your own creative juices, or are you kind of feeling into what the audience might want and then letting the creation or the evolution of the show shift or change because you're actually looking at some data and some feedback?
Well, I keep the comment stream open actually during the show and involve it throughout the entire program, where in between each segment I do a comments section where I look at the comments and read them. And if somebody asks a question, that can often just jump the whole show into answering that question, because I'm never going to leave somebody unsatisfied if they ask a question. They're going to get an explanation. And so the types of questions that have come across, though, have been from people that already have an interest in some of the things that I'm talking about, I guess. But then again, you know, who knew I was going to start reading from Alice in Wonderland and stuff like that. And it's evolving according to my interests, at the moment, and what I feel like are also kind of drawing from that vibe of the old variety show, what the energy and the vibe of it, which was to cover a variety of different types of subjects. But in a modern, I'm trying to come up with what modern people are going to find interesting. It's not going to be, you know, dog acts and animal acts. It's just not going to hold it. If it could, you know, I mean, everyone always loves it when, with Scott too, if our cats come onto the scene and get involved in the screen, and the audience goes crazy. So I'm thinking of incorporating, you know, more animal acts using my own cats. And don't worry, no animals will be harmed in the making of this.
I have some questions for Scott, because I want to weave this topic of variety back into the work that he currently does. Scott, in your Scott treatment work, you're doing all these video creations to help you know, individual clients of yours deliver their messages about their work in new, creative ways, repurposed ways, shorter ways, longer ways, edited ways, and so I guess I would just love to hear about video work and repurposing. you know, what we create live and how that makes for versatile communications.
Well, you know, it's a fascinating conversation we've had up until now, and I'm interested that we're talking about some of the shows of our youth, and a lot of them were, in fact, preserved on video, Kinescope perhaps, and now put on YouTube and so forth. But by and large, the medium that we're in right now is so ephemeral. You do it, and then it's gone. So what many people are striving to do, and really the one thing that makes it worthwhile in the long run, is to first of all be able to capture it on what we used to call on tape, and now it's digitally on YouTube, and then making it accessible for others to watch. And one way is to optimize the video so that it can be found in search, but might not be enough because holy cow, there are hundreds of millions of videos out there, and oftentimes they are a half an hour long, and you know, we can only watch so many of those at a given time. One of the great benefits that we have nowadays is that we can chop them up into small bites. So you can take a full hour-long program and have a highlights show that's 4 or 5 minutes, and you get the essence of the entire show, really a lot of value out of it. Many times people will do, and especially true for, well, informational, but I guess entertainment shows as well, and that is that they're packaged in 3 to 5 minute little packets, and those can be golden nuggets. So out of a single program that's an hour, there could be as many as 15 golden nuggets that can then be individually uploaded to YouTube and available for just-in-time viewing. Someone will type in something about, you know, a topic of that's of interest to them, and as Tom Hartley would say, Google is like eHarmony. It will mate the information that the viewers are demanding with the videos that just happen to be on the shelf waiting for them, and you have a marriage made in heaven. People will really love what they're seeing. So that's basically what the Scott treatment's all about.
And that's so valuable. And it's also made me think about some of the new technologies emerging that, Terry, I wonder whether you might even use. In the last week, a number of Hangout hosts, we've been talking about this new Hangout wrapper called Crowdcast. And one of the features of it is people can either post questions, or a host could put up in the question arena topics or just segments of a show. And the host...
And polls, too. Poll. Also
I don't know
polls.
what that is sounding.
What? A poll?
I don't know. Am I making noise?
I don't think so, but the poll feature is the one that I'm excited about, too. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
I'm going to mute my mic for a minute.
No, you sound great here. We don't hear anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the polls are awesome, though, and that's a really good thing. And the fact that you can have topic-driven things through that Q&A, it's not just for questions, it's also for people to suggest topics to discuss. So that's kind of neat, because in a salon type of a fashion, rather than having the topics all set before the group discussion begins, you can have people suggesting topics and have those voted up and become what everybody talks about that day.
Or automatic timestamps? How cool is that?
And automatic timestamps.
Have you played with it enough to see if you can like reproduce it into like a GDoc or something?
No, I haven't, because you have to realize that one difference with I do my show is that I do a live stream of YouTube live event, and so it's not a HOA-based thing. I understand the Crowdcast will let me use a live stream event embedded in there instead of a HOA. So I'm really curious how that automated timestamping is going to work. It is a YouTube video, so it might just be fine.
Terry?
Yes?
We'll spend a little half an hour or something, and I'll show you how you might be able to timestamp all of the segments of your show if you want to play with it once in Crowdcast, because you could then timestamp the educational section,
Yeah.
The flute section. So for somebody who only wants to watch the flute section, they can go into Crowdcast and go right to flute.
Right now I have all of my shows except 3 or 4 of the early ones. All of them are time-stamped, and it would be really nice if they would it could be automatable. Because I go in afterwards, I have to watch it, fast forward, and get my timestamps and make a list. I did find out that I can, if I share my YouTube video to my Blue Juice Jubilee community, if I share it from YouTube, then I can paste all my timestamps. I can paste the description, or the show more section that's got all the timestamps that are clickable. I can paste that in, and they all still work as clickable timestamps in the Google Plus community post. Because I was sharing the event page, and none of my timestamps were working in the description. So I found that out the hard way by waiting for someone to tell me that, you idiot, it works this way fine. But but yeah, I go through and do it the manual way. It would be great if I could have that somewhat automated by just saying, okay, in fact, even have my little agenda of topics in the question, the Q&A app, and just when it gets up to when I decide to do, instead of looking at my mind map for deciding what my agenda is going to be, let's look down the list and say, oh, well, now I'll read do the poetry reading, and just click on that, and then bingo, it's time-stamped till I click the next thing. So.
Hey, so Sidekick Scott, when you've watched Terry's show, what have you really enjoyed? Besides seeing, the evolution of the show, or what Terry might have included, what sections have you really found yourself enjoying, digging, grooving on the most?
Well, I like the idea that he has the comment tracker up over here, and then he's got himself. So he's got different frames on the screen, and so I enjoy seeing the comments in that regard. I also enjoy, then he'll go to the next scene, and it will be playing music. So there are 2 frames, and one of them shows his hands, and the other shows his head. I just get a kick out of those sorts of innovations. Of course, the cats will walk back from time to time, and I mean it's the variety show, and almost everything that Terry puts up is really fun. I mean, when he reads Edgar Allan Poe, I stop and listen, because when's the last time you heard that, right? So I love the music. It is truly a wonderful show to watch, and sometimes I'm not able to sit down and watch it straight through, so it's something that you can pop in and out of. And there are other times that I might be, say, cooking something in the kitchen. I'll play it in rerun, and it's just just one of those nice ways to spend time. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's my answer.
No, that's a beautiful commentary, and invites people to again really pay attention. And we certainly do want folks to veer on over. If you haven't watched Terry's Blue Juice variety show, check it out, because it's really fun. It's really fascinating. And of course, if you go over and watch Plus Words or some of the other game shows, you might see Scott or Terry showing up. Terry's there, I guess, almost all the time. But since we're kind of coming toward the close of our hour...
Yep, that's what I was just going to jump in and say. We are coming to that ending spot. And before we go, I want to make sure that we get to our shameless self-promotion, because we have to have that every week. It's tradition. So I would like to go ahead and start with Elaine and have you share anything that you would like to shamelessly self-promote, and final closing thoughts.
My shameless self-promotion is I'm still continuing to do the Holy Shift show. Whether the days might be a little different during the summer, because I got some dynamic things going on in my life, I still expect to be doing them. And if you like fun, if you like variety, if you like a little business stuff and a little consciousness stuff, and usually a mix of people to make for interesting perspectives on a topic. Come watch the Holy Shift show. And from time to time we do these F-word show, you know. We explore flexpletives and the future. And of course, one of my primary F-words is fun. Yay. So that's where to find me. And I keep feeling into how much I want to be doing the laughter stuff. I think when I get crowdcast down and figured out, I'm likely to be branching out in, you know, what I do with some of my shows. So keep on the lookout for more crowdcast experiment shows.
Very cool. Do you have any last thoughts on variety?
Once again, variety is the spice of life. It, you know, you could say it's a cliche, but it really is true. So I would just encourage people, you know, feel into your own tempos. And when stuff needs to move and shift and change in your life in terms of what you're finding you're curious about or what needs to come into expression in your life, pay attention, because it's moving through you for a purpose to really bless everybody. And we can really have fun while we're allowing these new expressions to come forth.
Thank you so much. Scott, let's have you go next.
Well, this is the shameless promotion part of the show. Really quickly, two things. The Just Plus Scott Plus You show will be launching our website, and we're featuring 10 of our best shows in edited evergreen version this summer, so be looking for that. And then I will be entirely redoing the Scott treatment. I'm the Scott in the Scott treatment, and I'll be entirely redoing the website featuring probably a couple hundred the Scott treatments that I've done over the past several months. Some of them are brand new, and I'm really excited about that. And we'll be making the Scott treatment available for anyone who has a need to repackage, repurpose, or repair their Hangouts on Air or other videos.
Thank you. Any last thoughts on variety?
I think variety is the spice of life. Really works. And also, if someone doesn't have a lot of variety in their life, then they're not going to be leading a balanced life, because a balanced life has to have all sorts of different things in it. Otherwise, you're just not living life to its fullest.
Super. All right, Terry Reinmeld, your turn.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to remind everybody that the whole thing with Variety Show is remembering all things in moderation, including moderation. And I do have the shameless plug, is that I not only have a Blue Juice Jubilee show every Sunday night, starts at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard if you want to catch the musical intro that goes for an hour, but then the actual show begins at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time and goes on for 2.5 more hours. Once that begins, till 8:30 Eastern Standard. And so what we pack it, and it's and the idea was, I never expected people to necessarily sit and watch the whole thing. But the idea was to have it be something fun to have in the background that you could listen to, similar to a podcast. And then when you hear, oh, Terry's doing a Pixlr tutorial, run to the screen because you want to see what he's doing in image manipulation. And but otherwise, not necessarily have to be watching the whole thing. I'm going to be doing Scott treatment. I'm going to take one reason I've been time stamping everything is because it does have all these different segments, and some of the segments would work well as standalones. And so I'm going to, knit together a whole bunch of, some nothing but flute segment shows or collections, and some nothing but keyboard shows, some nothing but keyboard and flute collections, and nothing but Pixlr editor tutorials collections, nothing but poetry reading collections, etc. And so we'll have, by using the timestamps, I can kind of pull in that type of thing, and maybe get myself actually get myself better at the skill that I used to be very good at in the old mechanical editing days of video editing, but maybe get my skills back up there and doing non-destructive digital video editing. in the digital realm, and do some Scott treatments on these things myself too. Scott's been very inspirational to several people in starting to do their own also, like Philomene and Timberlake on the Udemy the online video entrepreneurs and educators show. And it's really cool. But so there's my plug. Plus, of course, look for the Friday night game shows, the Plus Word shows at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard, and it goes on for an hour. And then often we pull members of the audience in afterwards to hang around for 2, 3, 4 hours after that show. And none of us get to bed till 3 or 4 in the morning. So, but oh yes.
We wait until Andrew's sister makes breakfast.
Yeah. It's like, so, but in paying homage to one of the great kings of comedy, Groucho Marx, I will remind everybody that time flies like an arrow, fruit flies like a banana.
Thank you. I am like holding back tears because I can't believe this is the last network roundtable, and I just have really valued the variety of people who have come through this show and the amazing after shows that happen even after, what people see on air. Like, I have forged so many friendships, and I really do mean friendships, that if I saw them, I would give them the greatest, biggest, hugest hug, like you guys. Like, I just so would. And I'm so grateful that Stephanie passed the baton to me, and that I was able to be the sidekick for this season. I wanted Dennis to be able to come here, and he was hoping to be here. Life happens, but he really was such a vital force for bringing so many people together like this. And I just have so much gratitude for Dennis, for Stephanie, for every single person who has come through Network Roundtable. It is because of you that we have all experienced growth. And just thank you so much for doing this with us. I'm going to be taking a couple weeks off to learn code. So I'll still be on Bill and Amy's, although we're not having it next week. So you may see me in a week or two, and I'll be a good coder by then. Who knows what I'll be creating? But we got to have variety, right? And it's time to move on and experience the next chapter in life. Thank you so much, everyone. Mwah.
Over and out. It's been a great session talking about appreciating variety. So thank you, everybody, for watching today, live or replay. The Network Roundtable, Season of Values, and the Softer Side of Business.